Hello everyone, welcome to my channel C.S.E-Pathshala. In this tutorial of Introduction to Deep Learning, we will study about artificial neural network. So, before taking a dip into deep learning, we need to know about artificial neural network. An artificial neural network is basically a blueprint of biological neural networks that is of a human brain. So, a neural network concept was first developed by American neurosciologist Mr. Warren and American logician Walter in the year 1943. And the concept they give is similar to a biological neural network. So, what happens in a biological neural network? Biological neural network is a network or it's a interconnection of neurons. And here, a biological neuron is having a cell body, dendrites, and axon. Okay, so this cell body is also called as a soma, and dendrites and axon are called as filaments. So, if you talk about dendroids, they are typically extrude a few hundred micrometers from the soma, while if you talk about axon, they can be about a meter long. And at the end of the axon, that means we are having the terminals, they are called as exon terminals. And each terminal is connected with another neuron with the help of a synapse. Okay, for each neuron, the dendrites they take the inputs from other neurons, and the axon is the output to the other neurons. Okay, if you talk about how many neurons human brain comprises of, so it will be approx 100 billion neurons are present in a human brain. In general, there are three types of neurons. These are sensory neurons, these are motor neurons, and interneurons. So, what does sensory neurons do? They respond to stimuli such as sensations. Basically, it can be due to touch, because of sound or light or any kind of signals that can be sent to the brain. If you talk about motor neurons, they receive the signals from the brain to control the muscle power. Okay, and interneurons, they are interconnection between the neurons. That means from one neuron to the another neuron. Now, similar to the biological neurons, we are having the concept of artificial neurons, and the artificial neurons also do the same task. What happens here? They also take the signals, okay, as an input, and they do multiply these signals with the weights. Okay, that means every neuron has been assigned certain weights. Okay, so whatever the inputs which are given in the form of the signals, there is a multiplication of that input with the weights. Then there is an addition. Okay, there is an addition of all the values, and then they are passed to a non-linear activation function to generate the output. Okay, so what does this activation function means? Activation function defines the output of that particular node, and it is a non-linear function generally. Okay, and it is been as a function of an input and a set of, or it can be like a set of inputs also. Okay, so again, similar to the biological neuron, we are having ANN, that is artificial neural network. They are also been an interconnection of the neurons, and generally here we are having three layers, as I've also discussed in the tutorial number one about the input layer, output layer, and the hidden layer. At the input layer, you used to give the input to the neurons. That is, you have to give the signals, okay, to the neurons. Then we are having an intermediate layer, that is the hidden layer, where the computation being performed, okay, and the output has been given by the neurons to the output layer. Okay, so and here, as we are talking about the traditional or conventional artificial neural network, so basically we are only available with one hidden layer, because if we increase the hidden layer as we do in the deep neural networks, so currently we are having one hidden layer in artificial neural network, just because we don't want to increase the complexity. Okay, though with one hidden layer also we are working, and here also the computation is being going to perform, though it takes times. But the point is, whatever the results which we are getting by traditional machine learning algorithms, okay, here the results are much more better with the help of artificial neural networks. So if we talk about the diagrammatic structure of biological neurons, so here you can see this is a biological neuron which has been present in our brain. Okay, and here is our artificial neuron. So here we are available with the weights. Okay, and x1, x2, and so on. Xn are the inputs. W1, W2, and till Wn are the weights. Okay, so here we are having the computation. Okay, here we are also giving bias or as an input. Okay, and here is the summation. Okay, summation has been performed. That means a computation is certainly like this: x1 into w1 plus x2 into w2 and so on, along with the bias. Okay, and then whatever the result which we are getting after computation from here in the neurons, we are giving it to the activation function. Okay, an activation function can be like any of the nonlinear function. Here I have taken the sigmoid function, and here is the y is your output. Okay, so here the value of y is like activation function, that is sigmoid. Here is the sigma sign. Inside we are giving the summation of wi into xi plus b, that is the bias. Okay, and here is your architecture of a and n. So we can see on the left hand side, this is an input layer. Intermediate, this is an hidden layer. And on the right hand side, we are having the output layer. That means we are available with the three layers in a and n, and its structure is compatible as like of biological neural network. Okay, now the next thing is, if you want to train an ANN, that is your artificial neural network, we need to first assign weights to the neural network. Okay, and that weights are assigned randomly. Okay, and then we feed the network a set of training data. Okay, so first you need to assign the weights, then you need to feed the inputs to your network. Okay, that is, you need to feed the data to your network for the training purposes. Okay, and this data can be any of the certain inputs which you want to give, and the outputs which you are being expecting. Okay, so at each time the network produces an output. Okay, every time when the your network been running, your model has been running, so every time it generates some output, and we are using here a loss function also. Okay, what is this loss function used to do? Here the computed output which we are getting after, as we feed it the input to our model or to our network, then obviously there is an output generated. Okay, so the output which has been computed and the output which has been desired will take a difference between these two. Okay, so whatever be the differences, that is your loss function. Okay, so it gives the differences that are generally called as an errors, and to the network we adjust the weights according to that particular errors which we are getting. Okay, so this process or this phenomena is called as back propagation method, or the back propagation of errors. So accordingly, whatever the errors which we are getting here in the loss function or this particular process, and accordingly we need to adjust the weights, and this process is called as gradient descent. Okay, so the technique of gradient descent means the weights needs to be adjusted according to the errors which we got while training our model. Okay, and what is this gradient descent? Okay, as I have already defined, it calculates the gradient of the errors. Okay, del. Okay, del function. It calculates the gradient of the errors with respect to whom? With respect to the weights of the neural network, and then the adjustment of the weights has been done in order to reduce the errors. Okay, so here obviously there is a concept or phenomena of error also. It doesn't mean that we are available with a neural network and every time we are getting 100% accuracy or 100% results. No, it's not like that. We are available with certain your output. We are training our model on the basis of inputs, and whatever the results which we are getting as an output, we need to compare that results with the actual results. If if there is a difference between these two, obviously that will be an error, and according to the error we need to adjust our system, we need to adjust our model, we need to retrain our model by the adjustments in the weights, we need to reduce the errors. Okay, and that phenomena is called as your gradient descent, according to which the weights has been adjusted. Okay, so this process is repeated many times until your neural network weights are not stabilized. Okay, So, by training an ANN, that is artificial neural network, it is essentially to perform this technique or this process because it is a case of optimization problem. Okay, so gradient descent is commonly an iterative optimization algorithm. We need to perform it iteratively. Okay, every time when you're, just training your model, it's under your EPOS or it's under your process of in training. Okay, so gradient descent is something which we need to apply every time, and basically it is used to find a local minimum of a function. Okay, local minima of the function. Okay, this idea is repeated in every steps in the opposite direction of the gradient. Okay, and it gives the direction of the steepest descent. Steepest descent means downfall. Okay, it gives the direction of the steepest descent of the downfall. That means, for example, if we are going on a top of the mountain or a hill or whatsoever, and if we are finding a way to explore what is the bottom. Okay, so this standard gradient descent follows the path with the steepest descent. Steepest means very sharp descent, very sharp downfall, very sharp path. Okay, so this standard gradient descent follows that particular path and tends or fall to get stuck at a local minimum value. Okay, so we are having the stochastic gradient descent. It is a variety, or I would say it is a variant of gradient descent. It is a category of a gradient descent, and it's also a problem of adding randomness to the path. Okay, we are not specific to any of the path. We needs to be random. We needs to follow random path in order to find the steepest slope or the steepest path to get the minimum value. Okay, so as a result, if you are using stochastic gradient descent, it converges as much as it can, and it is much faster than the gradient descent. So we can see in the diagram that the first case is of the gradient descent, which is not random in nature. However, in case of stochastic gradient descent, we can see that there is a random path. A random path has been followed, and this is very much steepest in nature. Okay, and because of this steepness, we are able to find the minima or the minimum value of our or minimum value for our gradient. Okay, and then accordingly we are going to train our model. We are going to make our weights changing according to the errors, and as much as errors we are going to reduce, obviously we are going to get a better results. Now, after training, we can feed the network with a set of unseen data also in order to perform the testing, obviously. So we do perform the analysis by putting the data for the training purposes, and all these steps which I have told you, it happened over the model during the training. And then after your model get trained, we put our unseen data or unused data, or we feed our data which has been used for the testing purpose in our model or in our trained model, I would say, for the prediction of the output. Okay, artificial neural network usually need a lot of training. Okay, it's not like that one or two or three steps. Basically, if you run our ANN model, so obviously it requires a lot of training, and it may also take a lot of time to train. But once it is trained, it will produce better results than the traditional machine learning algorithms, and it will definitely produce the better results also. Okay, so according to the American psychologist Mr. Frank, they developed the first ANN, artificial neural network, that is called as Perceptron, in the year 1958, as he was working for the Cornell Aeronautical Laboratory at the Cornell University, New York. Okay, and Perceptron was an electronic device basically. Okay, was an electronic device. The concept was same, as it was just like a blueprint of the biological neural network, and it has a capacity, it has a tendency to learn. Okay, so here the goal of artificial neural network is also to learn, as you are feeding your data, your training data inside it, and you are making your model to learn every time. Whether if it is giving the errors, we are continuously retraining our model to reduce the errors. Okay, and just making it to learn, so that if we give a set of data any real world problem which on the basis of which you are going to train your model, on the basis of which you are going to apply on that particular model. So obviously it will give you the best results. Here the main goal of the perceptron was to recognize different patterns in your whatever the problem statement was. Okay, so this is all about your artificial neural network. We will study ahead the more concepts of deep learning in the upcoming tutorials. So kindly do subscribe to the channel. Thank you.